was to cancel my college entrance exam registration. I called my grandfather, a general stationed far away in the Southwest, and told him I wanted to build airplanes, simply because, in my previous life, I had studied hard for a whole year preparing for the exam, only to have my place stolen by my husband's childhood sweetheart. After achieving the top score, I watched as that girl stood protected behind my husband, holding the admission letter that should have been mine. In that moment, I realized everything. I hysterically confronted my husband, demanding to know why he would steal my opportunity to go to college for a woman who hadn't even taken the exam. But he looked at me with disdain and acted as though I was being unreasonable, saying, "You come from a wealthy family, and you already have me as your husband. Do you really have to compete with Emily for this college slot?" I couldn't stand the humiliation. On the day of university registration, I secretly went to the school and told the administrators that I was the real top scorer, but with no proof, my husband restrained me by force. He even used his position as a battalion commander to spread rumors that I had a mental illness. After that, I was tied up and sent to a psychiatric hospital. With no way to escape, I became depressed and eventually died. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the time before the exam, to my third year of preparing for it. I studied hard for a whole year, and 3 days before the college entrance exam, I canceled my registration. On my way back to the military compound, I passed a public phone booth and made a call to my grandfather, someone I hadn't contacted in a long time. "Grandpa, it's me, Rachel. About what you mentioned before, I'm willing to go." On the other end of the line was a joy I hadn't heard in years. He told me he would send someone to pick me up in 2 weeks. He was reluctant to hang up. In my last life, Grandpa's biggest regret was that none of the younger generation in the Shen family was willing to devote themselves to aviation. Even after he passed for many years, no one visited his grave. But this time, I told him that his old friend, Grandpa Frank, had used his designs to build a new airplane. In this life, I wouldn't let him have regrets. When I returned to the compound, my husband, Jason, and his childhood sweetheart, Emily, were sitting on the couch as if they'd been waiting for a while. As soon as I walked in, Jason stood up and complained, "Rachel, it's so late. Why aren't you home studying for the exam? Why are you out wandering around?" I met his eyes and thought about all the harm he had done to me in my past life. I felt nothing but disgust. I looked away and asked, "Didn't you always say studying was useless? That you didn't support me taking the exam?" A flicker of guilt flashed through his eyes before he said, "That was before. Now you're putting so much effort into it. If I say a few words of concern, suddenly I'm the one in the wrong?" Seeing that I wasn't moved, Emily stepped forward and tried to take my arm, but I pulled away. She smiled gently, as if unbothered, and said, "Rachel, Jason's just concerned about you. Your husband and wife, of course he cares. Anyway, how's your studying going? Jason said you're really confident about getting into college." In my previous life, when I decided to take the exam, I went to several bookstores to buy prep materials. I shared my study plan with Jason, full of excitement and hope, but he just mocked me. "As the battalion commander's wife, don't you think you should try not to embarrass me? You really insist on taking the exam just to earn a scholar's empty reputation?" He looked down on me, on students, and thought I was wasting my time. Yet now he was pretending to care, just because of another woman. It wasn't that he thought studying was useless. He just thought my studying was. On the day of the college entrance exam, I picked up my pencil case and got ready to leave. Jason and the always late Emily stood at the door, casually wishing me good luck. I got on the only bicycle in the house and left. But I didn't go to the testing site. Without a valid registration, I wouldn't be allowed in anyway. I spent the afternoon at a nearby bookstore, then bought a few books and came home early. The compound was quiet and empty. It wasn't until I reached my front door that I heard voices from inside. Jason was cooking noodles for Emily. The hot noodles were topped with slices of pork and eggs. In all my memory, Jason had never stepped foot in the kitchen. Not even last winter, when I had a 104-degree fever and begged him to bring me some food from the cafeteria. He coldly refused. I still remember what he said. Didn't I give you this month's ration coupons? Besides, you're on sick leave and not working. Asking me to bring food is just trying to take advantage. I'm a battalion commander. How could I stoop to something so petty? Come on, Rachel, it's just a cold. Do you really have to be so dramatic? So that winter, I went without medicine. I hadn't eaten. My fever kept spiking until I fainted over and over again, until Mrs. Zhang, the woman who delivered ration coupons next door, found me. I should have realized it long ago. When someone doesn't love you, it shows all too clearly. Inside the house, Emily ate her noodles slowly, delicately, while Jason sat there silently watching her, as if they were the real couple. As she chewed, Emily looked up at Jason and said sincerely, "Jason, you're so good to me. Sometimes I really envy Rachel. She has a grandfather who's a general, and a husband like you, an outstanding battalion commander. Unlike me, my parents died early, and now I have no one. I'm all alone in this world." Jason pulled her into his arms and said gently, "Emily, who said you're alone? From now on, I'll be the one you can rely on. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you." "Thank you, Jason," Emily replied softly, "but I'm still worried. Are you sure no one will find out about what we did? What if Rachel finds out?" "Don't worry," he reassured her. "The exam proctor this time is one of my oldest buddies. I've already taken care of everything. After the exam, once he sees Rachel's name, he'll switch it to yours. As for Rachel, she won't find out, and even if she does, so what? She can just retake it next year. She came from such a privileged family, and now she's the respected wife of a battalion commander. She should be the one giving up her spot in college for you." As I listened to their conversation, my fists clenched involuntarily. Jason had only been a low-ranking squad leader under my father when we first met. By sheer luck, I came to visit my father, and Jason claimed it was love at first sight. With my father's support, he climbed the ladder step by step, gaining military honors and eventually earning his rank. Later, he personally told my father he wanted to marry me. We got married, and in the second year of our marriage, my father died in an accident. Around that same time, Jason finally achieved his dream of becoming a battalion commander. That's when everything changed. His attitude toward me shifted. He started belittling me, undermining me, and all the tenderness he'd shown before the wedding vanished. I kept telling myself he was under pressure at work. I tried to see things from his point of view. I gave in, forgave him, made excuses for him. Until the third year of our marriage, when he brought Emily into our home. I cried, I argued, I broke down. All I got in return was, "You're being unreasonable." By now, after 5 years of marriage, all that remained between us was cohabitation. No love, just going through the motions. Just as I was about to push open the door, I heard a loud ow from inside. It sounded like Emily had fallen. Jason rushed over to catch her. His breath hovered by her ear as they stood close, bodies almost pressed together. I took that moment to push the door open and caught the entire scene in full view. "What are you doing?" I asked sharply. Emily was the first to speak. "Rachel, don't misunderstand," she said sweetly. I twisted my ankle and Jason was just helping me. Yet as she spoke, she leaned in even closer to him, her body language practically begging me to misunderstand. Jason didn't let go of her. Instead, he looked straight at me and demanded, "Rachel, shouldn't you be at the exam right now? Why are you back?" A cold smile tugged at the corners of my lips. As expected, not a trace of concern. Emily hurried to smooth things over. "The questions must have been too easy," she said with a fake laugh. "Rachel must have finished early. So how was it, Rachel? Do you think you'll get into college?" "Thanks to you two, the questions were no problem," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I should be able to score first place again. If I hadn't been reborn, fate would have repeated itself exactly as before. I would have earned the top score, and he would have taken it away. At my answer, Emily nearly jumped with excitement, as if she had already received the college acceptance letter. "Why are you happier than I am?" I asked, eyes narrowing. "You act like you're the one who aced the exam." She beamed with that practiced sweetness. "I'm just happy for you, Rachel." "Jason, I don't think she appreciates it." Jason's expression hardened. "Enough, Rachel. I won't allow you to bully Emily anymore," he shouted at me, loud and fierce. I hadn't done anything wrong. I stared at the two of them putting on their act, and a fire of rage lit inside me. "Jason, which of your eyes saw me bullying her?" I snapped, breaking from the passive, obedient role I'd always played. Jason was stunned by my sudden defiance, as if he couldn't believe I'd talk back to him. His eyes blazed like an angry lion's, glaring at me with fury. Emily quickly jumped in, her voice soft and trembling. "Jason, don't fight because of me. Rachel never bullied me. If I made her uncomfortable, I just won't come around anymore." She turned to leave, tears running down her face. But just 2 steps away from Jason's arms, she stumbled and fell to the floor. Jason rushed over and scooped her up, his face full of concern. "Emily, are you okay? I'll take you to the hospital right now. Rachel, if anything happens to her, you're going to pay for it." With that, he carried her out in his arms and left in a hurry. I looked around at the now empty room and couldn't help but feel the bitter sting of irony. Emily's traces were everywhere. Her perfume, her hair tie on the table, the half-eaten bowl of noodles. Maybe I should have left a long time ago. I counted the days in my heart, just 10 more. In 10 days, the people my grandfather was sending would arrive. And in that time, I needed to get Jason's consent to a divorce. That night, Jason came home late, carrying Emily on his back. He saw me asleep on the couch and immediately flew into a rage. Without a word, he picked up a glass and poured a full cup of cold water over my head. The shock of it jolted me awake. Soaked and humiliated, I stood up and walked straight up to him and slapped him hard across the face. "Jason, what the hell is wrong with you?" He hadn't expected me to hit him. His face twisted with rage as he stormed toward me, forcing me backward until I was cornered against the wall. "Rachel, you actually dared to hit me?" he growled. "You're getting more and more unreasonable. I provide for you, give you food and clothes. Emily's been nothing but kind to you, and yet you keep making trouble. You're totally out of control. Go ask around. Has anyone else in the entire compound ever dared to hit their own husband? You're the crazy one here. You must have some kind of mental illness." I stared at him coldly. "Do you even remember whose husband you are?" Emily, who'd been watching from the side, suddenly opened her mouth. "If you love her that much, Jason, then let's divorce. You two can be together. Wouldn't that be perfect?" Jason was so furious he couldn't even speak. His face turned dark red, veins bulging on the back of his hand. Then, all of a sudden, he yanked me by the hair and dragged me outside. He slammed the door behind me and locked it. His warning voice came through the door, colder than I'd ever heard. "Rachel Shen, don't say I didn't warn you. Don't regret this." The night wind was cold, and I was wearing nothing but thin indoor clothes. I started shivering almost immediately, but it didn't take long for me to understand exactly what Jason meant by those parting words. From inside the house, their voices rose again. A thin door stood between us, but I heard everything clearly. Sweet words of affection, passionate whispers, the sound of kissing, of clothes being torn, of a bed frame creaking, Jason's heavy breathing and forceful movements, Emily's soft moans and perfectly timed responses. Jason was cheating. Right there, on the other side of the door, while I sat outside in the freezing night wind, and they kept going, unapologetically, shamelessly, through the entire night. As dawn broke, I heard the sound of a neighbor lady in the next unit getting up to cook. The noises from my room had finally quieted down, like they'd just gone to sleep. I sat there in a daze, numb and motionless like a wooden doll. Then, out of nowhere, a lit cigarette butt flew through the air and landed at my feet, still burning. Before long, I saw flames flicker in the house, and thick smoke began pouring out. Neighbors saw the smoke and rushed toward my home. Mrs. Jan caught sight of me standing in the corner in my thin clothes and froze. Then she hurried over and pulled me aside. "Rachel, what's going on? Your place is on fire. Are there still people inside? Quick, help put it out." Everyone grabbed buckets of water and started trying to extinguish the flames. Mrs. Zhang reappeared and draped a coat over my shoulders. "Rachel, your arms are freezing. Just wear my coat for now. Don't be afraid. We'll all help put the fire out." I had listened to Jason and Emily's betrayal all night long and hadn't shed a tear. But at Mrs. Zhang's words, I couldn't hold it back anymore. Tears began to fall uncontrollably. She must have thought I was crying over worry for my husband. In her panic, she picked up a water bucket and ran toward the fire. The flames were finally starting to die down. The smoke hadn't cleared. Just then, I heard the sound of coughing from inside the house. One male, one female. getting closer. Moments later, Jason stumbled out of the house, shirtless, holding a disheveled Emily in his arms. Everyone turned to look at the two of them, then glanced at me standing silently to the side. Whispers started to spread through the crowd. Wait a minute. Isn't Captain Jason married to Rachel? Then why is he carrying Emily like that? Just look at them. Clothes a mess. They were probably in bed together. Poor Rachel. Nub, her husband's been sleeping with another woman and she didn't even know. No wonder Emily's always showing up at Jason's house, using their so-called friendship as an excuse. Looks like she wasn't friends with Rachel. She was after her man. This is a serious breach of discipline for a captain. Emily's no innocent either. I stood in the center of the growing crowd, facing the two of them in their utter disgrace. The murmurs continued, each word slicing through the air and landing squarely in Jason and Emily's ears. Jason's face turned the color of ash, and the way he looked at me was as if he wanted to shoot me dead on the spot. Emily clutched her torn clothes to her chest and buried her face in Jason's arms. Jason, she whispered in panic, say something. Tell them it's not what it looks like, please. Jason held her tightly, then glared at everyone. Enough, stop talking nonsense. Emily and I are innocent. Innocent? You were holding her in your arms half naked. Rachel's such a decent person. Captain, what are you thinking? The women around us, all wives of military personnel, weren't buying it. They kept pointing fingers and shaking their heads. They knew if this incident got out, Jason would definitely face disciplinary action from the organization. Emily, seeing the tide turning against them, wiped her tears and started crying out, Ladies, you've misunderstood. Jason and Rachel are no longer together. They've already divorced. She turned to Jason, urging, Tell them, Jason. Tell everyone you and Rachel are already divorced. If this gets misunderstood and affects your standing with the organization, I'll never forgive myself. Me getting sent to some rural outpost to reflect is nothing, but if this hurts your record, I'll be devastated. Jason looked over at me and finally said in a cold voice, That's right. Rachel and I are divorced, and I have every reason to believe she set this fire. The first thing Jason did after taking Emily to the hospital for a checkup was to throw me into the disciplinary investigation room. Inside the interrogation room, he stood in full uniform and said coldly, Rachel Shen, did you start that fire at the door? Just because I spent a little more time with Emily, you went crazy and tried to burn us alive? I never realized you were this vicious and jealous. You've completely lost it. You think, just because you took the college entrance exam, you're better than Emily? Let me tell you, people who commit crimes don't get into college. When your admission letter comes, even if you scored top marks, I'll report you to the university with the truth, that you committed arson. I believe no college would accept a student with such poor character. That spot should go to someone who truly deserves it. I looked at Jason and couldn't help but laugh. So this was his real intention in bringing me here, to interrogate me personally, to threaten me. You say I don't deserve to go to college, Jason. Then tell me, who does? Emily? The girl who didn't even take the exam. His eyes narrowed. He'd been hit where it hurt. Rachel Shen, what happened to you? You've become so unreasonable. No, I said firmly. I'm just not blindly obedient anymore. I'm not bending over backwards, hoping to touch your heart. I've been given a second chance at life, Jason. My world is no longer centered around you. The people who don't love me, who only brought me pain, I should have let go of them long ago. I stood up and stared him in the eye. After a long silence, I finally said what I had wanted to say for years. Jason, let's get a divorce. His hand twitched at his side. He stepped closer, looking down at me from his greater height, with a strange expression I had never seen before. Then he turned his back to me. Fine, but don't come crawling back to me later begging, because I won't be there. I won't beg, and that day will never come. Soon after, I completed the divorce with Jason. When I was finally released, I returned home to pack a few things. Emily was already sitting on the sofa, eating fruit. When I came back, Emily lazily tossed a grape at my feet. Rachel, I bet you don't often get to eat fruit this fresh. Go ahead, try it, she said smugly, watching with satisfaction as the grape rolled across the dusty floor toward me. I smiled, picked up the grape, walked straight over to Emily, and shoved it into her mouth. Watching her panic as she scrambled to spit it out, I felt an immense sense of satisfaction. Rachel Shen, you're not even the battalion commander's wife anymore. How dare you humiliate me like this? Do you want me to have Jason lock you up again? She shrieked. Didn't you start this, Emily? I replied coolly. As for Jason, he's a cold, heartless bastard. The only person who still thinks he's worth anything is you. Without giving her another glance, I turned and went into the room to pack my things. But as I searched every shelf and cabinet, I realized something. The aviation books I'd bought were missing. Just then, Jason returned. I confronted him immediately. Where are the books I kept on the shelf? What books? He said, glancing toward Emily as if something had just occurred to him. Oh, I remember now, Emily piped up cheerfully. Last time I was making chicken soup for you, we ran out of firewood. I saw those books and used them to keep the fire going. Sorry, Rachel. I didn't know they were yours. But honestly, they were about aviation or something, right? I figured they weren't of any use. Just a few useless books, right? Burning them doesn't matter. I looked at Jason, raised my hand, and slapped him across the face. Emily opened her mouth in shock. I didn't hesitate. She got a slap too. Jason, those were my books. What gave you the right to let her burn them? Do you know how far I traveled? How many bookstores I visited to find them? How could you just decide they were worthless? That was the second time I had hit Jason. Predictably, he was as furious as the first time. Rachel Shen, you're treating a few worthless books like they're treasures. You're making drama out of nothing. What? You think you can actually build a plane with that crap? After I hit Jason and Emily, he convinced himself I was mentally unstable. He went to the authorities and applied for a disciplinary order to have me sent to a psychiatric evaluation center. But during the same time, I had successfully made contact with the comrade my grandfather had sent. We were scheduled to meet tomorrow and depart for the Southwest. I made up my mind. I just had to survive this one last day. But of course, Emily couldn't leave me alone. That night, she came to me holding a bus ticket, her face brimming with pride. Rachel Shen, I heard you're being sent to a psychiatric hospital. What a pity. You won't get to see the wedding banquet Jason's throwing for me tomorrow. She leaned in closer, practically giddy. Since you're leaving, I might as well tell you one more good thing. Tomorrow's banquet won't just be our wedding celebration. It's also a party to celebrate me becoming the top scorer on the college entrance exam. I know you must be wondering, how can I go to college if I didn't even take the exam? Well, it's all thanks to you, Rachel. She smirked. With one word from me, your exam score, your college admission, even your man, they're all mine. Ever wonder why Jason never stopped you from studying, even though he didn't like it? It's because I told him I wanted to go to college. Rachel Shen, you were nothing more than a proxy, just a tool for taking the exam. Watching Emily grin like a lunatic, I said quietly, Is that so? Then I'll let you have that top score. The next morning, a three-wheeled cart stopped in front of me. The driver told me Jason had ordered him to take me to the station. Just as I was about to refuse, a brand new car pulled up beside us. A warm, pleasant voice called out, Comrade Rachel Shen, hello. A tall man about my age stepped out and greeted me with a bright smile. Seeing my confusion, he quickly introduced himself. I'm Frank Yuliang. General Shen, your grandfather, sent me to pick you up. I've seen your photo. He then pointed to the cart driver. This is Uncle Liang. He's the one who's been in touch with you these past few days. I grabbed my luggage and got into the car. As it pulled away, I finally felt a sense of relief I had never known before. On the road, I asked Frank about my grandfather's health. We chatted casually until our path was suddenly blocked by a wedding procession. I looked out the window and saw Jason holding Emily's hand, introducing her to the guests. Thank you all for coming to attend our makeup wedding ceremony, he said cheerfully. Today isn't just a celebration of our marriage, it's also a party to congratulate Emily on scoring top marks in the college entrance exam, he continued. After estimating her score, we're confident Emily will hit over 700. She's practically guaranteed to be the top scorer. Everyone here today, I hope you take some of our joy home with you. Jason beamed as he addressed the wedding guests. Watching the scene before me, I couldn't help but feel how absurd it all was. Frank Yuliang, standing beside me, noticed the way I stared and asked curiously, "Miss Shen, you seem captivated. Do you happen to know the couple?" I smiled and said calmly, "That's my ex-husband and his new wife." A week later, the three of us finally arrived in the Southwest. The moment I got off the train, I couldn't wait to see my grandfather. I had imagined the reunion countless times during the journey, but when I finally saw him, I still couldn't hold back my tears. "My sweet girl, come here, let Grandpa take a look at you. How did you get so thin? You've really been through a lot." He was just like I remembered, his tone gentle but full of concern. Next to him stood another elderly man I didn't recognize. Smiling kindly, he said, "This is your Grandpa Frank. He and I built this school together." So this was Grandpa Frank, the same man who, in my past life, had helped my grandfather fulfill his final wish. Unfortunately, neither of us lived to witness that moment. After settling into the school, I began participating in a series of fundamental tests on aviation theory. Once I passed, I was finally allowed to enter the lab and begin working alongside Grandpa. That's where I ran into Frank Yuliang again. I found out he was Grandpa Frank's grandson. Every day, the group of us students immersed ourselves in designing and studying structural blueprints in the lab. Before I realized it, more than half a month had flown by. The next time I heard from Jason, I was eating lunch with Frank in the cafeteria. A classmate came in and said someone was calling me. I went to the phone booth, and to my surprise, it was Jason on the line. It was college admission season, and Emily still hadn't received her acceptance letter. At first, Jason assumed she'd scored so high that top schools were fighting over her. But when the day came for students to report to campus, and she still hadn't received anything, she began to panic. Jason tried calling the proctor who had been in charge during the exam, but couldn't get through. So he went to the education office to check Emily's exam results. There, the staff told him there was no record of a candidate named Emily White. He then asked them to check my results, but it turned out I hadn't taken the exam either. My registration had been canceled by me personally 3 days before the test. In a panic, Jason called the psychiatric hospital, only to find out I was never admitted. He then tracked down the driver who had taken me away that day, and finally learned that I had returned to my grandfather. Over the phone, his voice was full of disbelief and anger. "Rachel Shen, why didn't you take the college entrance exam? Didn't you say you could score top marks? Why didn't you go? Do you have any idea how humiliated you made Emily feel?" "Jason," I replied calmly, "I didn't take the exam because I didn't want to. What does that have to do with Emily? Or wait, was she planning to use my score to sneak into college under my name?" "You? How did you know?" "Jason, if you don't want people to find out, don't do it in the first place. If you want to go to college, then take the test yourself. Stealing someone else's score, doesn't that eat at your conscience?" Without waiting for a reply, I hung up. As I turned, I saw Frank Yuliang standing behind me. "Sorry," he said gently. "I didn't mean to overhear." "It doesn't matter," I said, shaking my head. "It's all irrelevant now." In the days that followed, I stayed focused on research with my classmates. Just as we were making significant progress on a new project, an unexpected visitor showed up at the school gate. Jason was standing there, unshaven, exhausted, looking like he hadn't slept for days. I watched him through the metal fence. His voice was soft, almost pleading. "Rachel, I finally found you. It's been so long. Did you miss me? I rode the train for hours just to see you. I came to take you home." "Mr. Smith," I said formally, "we're divorced. Please show some respect." I turned to leave, but Jason suddenly reached through the bars and grabbed my arm. "Rachel, I know you're still mad at me. I was wrong. I've changed. I finally understand how much you loved me. We were together for 5 years. I know you loved me with all your heart. Come back with me, okay? I'll never make you suffer again. I'll take care of you when you're sick, stand by your side when you're sad, and protect you the moment someone wrongs you. Rachel, please, forgive me. Just give me one more chance." So he did know. He knew I needed care, support, someone who would choose me without hesitation. When I loved him, he met me only with cold indifference. Now that I've left, suddenly he claims to understand what it means to love. And now he wants me to return. As what? His mistress? When his wife is Emily White? Would she even agree to that? Jason heard my words and mistook them for a sign that I was softening. Instantly, He switched back to his usual smug, self-important demeanor. "Rachel, don't worry," he said. "I've already talked it over with Emily. As long as you come back with me and ask your grandfather to help get her into your school, take your spot, study in your place, she's willing." "Sure, this school is far, but Emily said she doesn't mind. In return, we'll consider getting remarried. If you put in a good word for me with your grandfather, maybe you'll help me get my commander position back. You'll be the battalion commander's wife again, just like before." I stared at Jason, genuinely baffled by the audacity he had to say something so utterly shameless. "You really haven't changed one bit," I said coldly. "Still so self-centered. Do you think the world revolves around you? That people can't breathe once they leave you? You make me sick." I yanked my arm out of his grip and turned to leave. But Jason, still thinking I was just throwing a tantrum, shouted behind me, "Rachel, don't be mad. I know you don't like Emily. You don't want her taking your place in school. Then how about this? You give up the college spot and let me have it. I heard you're working with your grandfather on aircraft designs. You're a woman. There's no need for you to be doing that stuff. Let me do it. I'll take your place and build the plane instead. If that's what you want, I'll divorce Emily right now and we can remarry." I had no intention of being entangled with Jason any longer. But hearing those words made my stomach turn. I turned back around and slapped him hard across the face. "Jason Smith, you think you're worthy?" Still refusing to give up, Jason lunged toward me again, trying to grab me, but suddenly Emily appeared and yanked him to the side. I hadn't seen her in months. Her figure was clearly bloated. She looked pregnant. Crying and furious, she beat her fists against Jason's chest. "Wow, Jason," she sobbed. "I married you with all my heart. When you got demoted from commander to squad leader, I stuck with you. You promised you'd convince Rachel to give up her college spot for me, but now you want to take it for yourself? You really are heartless." Jason, humiliated in front of everyone, snapped. He shook off Emily's grip and shouted, "Emily White, like you've done nothing wrong? What man doesn't want a woman who actually takes care of the house? I give you all my salary and bonuses every month. And yet you don't clean, don't cook, and blow through the money in 10 days. I come home exhausted, and you can't even give me a hot meal. And that's all while I'm working myself to death for you and that baby. So you married me just to have a maid, to do your laundry and cook your meals?" Emily yelled back, "Why should I do things other women wouldn't have to?" "Get out of my way," Jason snapped. "I'm divorcing you. Don't stop me from getting back together with Rachel." Emily glared at him with fury, then suddenly broke into a manic laugh. "Jason Smith, I'm telling you right now, as long as I'm still here, you can forget about it. You try to remarry her, and I'll go to the party committee. I'll tell the commander you abandoned your wife and unborn child." I wanted nothing to do with the mess between Jason and Emily. I turned and walked away. But before I left, I called security and had them escort the two of them off school grounds. Just as they were being removed, Jason tried to shake Emily off. In the struggle, he shoved her. Off balance, Emily crashed into the iron fence behind her and collapsed unconscious. Blood pooled around her feet. School staff immediately rushed her to the nearest hospital. When she finally regained consciousness, she was told she had lost the baby. The shock devastated her, and she blamed it all on me and Jason. She dragged her recovering body into the main office and, through hoarse screams and tears, accused both Jason and me of causing the miscarriage. Jason and I were both taken to an interrogation room to assist with the investigation. When they asked us to provide evidence that we weren't responsible, I was stunned into silence. I didn't even know where to begin. Only Jason, clearly irritated, argued back, "Comrade, Emily and I are married. Why am I being dragged in for this? Even if the miscarriage has something to do with me." "But I'm still the father of the child," Jason argued. "Do I really have to take the blame too?" The staff member visibly bristled at his words, clearly irritated, but trying to stay composed. "Sir," he replied, "regardless of your relationship to the victim, any act of harm requires legal accountability. The law is fair. It doesn't excuse someone from punishment just because they're a relative or spouse." On the second day of questioning, the investigators brought me into a separate room. Someone had come forward with evidence proving I wasn't responsible for what happened. When I left the interrogation room, I saw Frank Yuliang waiting nearby. "Was it you who spoke up for me?" I asked. It turned out that the day Frank had learned Jason was the one coming to the school to find me, he grew concerned for my safety. So, he borrowed a voice recorder from a classmate in another department. He had secretly recorded the entire conversation between me, Jason, and Emily that day. Frank handed the recording over to the investigators, and only then did the higher-ups realize just how far Jason had abused his authority and crossed the line. A full investigation followed. Once enough evidence was gathered, Jason was formally arrested. With him finally out of my life, I was free to focus entirely on my studies. 5 years later, Frank Yuliang and I successfully built a fully functional aircraft. Its performance was exceptional, and it represented a major leap forward compared to previous models. We had achieved breakthroughs in an entirely new area of innovation. Major news outlets and newspapers rushed to publish reports on our success. That milestone marked the beginning of many years of effort we would dedicate to the aerospace industry. Frank and I continued working side by side, doing our part to advance aviation and space technology. Years later, a middle-aged man who had just been released from prison bought a newspaper from a roadside vendor. Crouching in a corner, he pointed at the paper and boasted to a stranger nearby, "See that woman who built the plane? She's my wife." The person glanced at him like he was crazy. "Everyone knows Professor Shen is married to Professor Frank," they said. "You really think someone like you could be her husband? Are you out of your mind?" "Professor Shen is my idol," someone else chimed in. "You think a man like that could ever measure up to her?" As the strangers laughed and walked away, Jason held the newspaper in his hand, wandering aimlessly. He had no idea where to go. It was as if there was no one left in the world who still cared whether he lived or died. Meanwhile, in a university in the Southwest, in a classroom full of aerospace engineering students, I adjusted my glasses and began sketching diagrams on the blackboard. The students were bright, passionate, full of boundless potential. And I was deeply honored to serve even